Hello, everyone, and welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the latest mission from Vandenberg Space Force Base. I'm Will Robinson Smith, reporter with Spaceflight Now. So good to be with you on this Wednesday night for those on the East Coast. It is about 40 minutes past midnight here on the East Coast. At this point in time, SpaceX should be fueling its Falcon 9 rocket at Space Launch Complex 4 East at Vandenberg Space Force Base as it's counting down towards planned liftoff of its Falcon 9 rocket at 10:05 p.m. Pacific, 1:05 a.m. Eastern, 05:05 UTC, which is the end of its launch window today. Of course, this is a West Coast venture, so most of our team has this evening off, but no rest for the weary. Of course, we've got another launch on the horizon from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station here in Florida, looking at the flight of another Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 10-20 mission. That's coming up tomorrow morning, just about 3 minutes before sunrise. So it should be quite a beautiful liftoff if that launch time doesn't shift over the overnight hours. Meanwhile, as SpaceX is counting down towards the launch here at Vandenberg, there are 24 Starlink satellites on board. It's been a minute since we've had a Vandenberg launch, about 2 weeks since the last flight of a Falcon 9 rocket from here in California. So we're glad to have you with us as we're kicking off our live coverage. To the little more than 1,200 of you who are with us already, be sure to click that like button and share the stream if you would be so kind. Allow some more folks to find their way into this live launch coverage as we roll on through the count. Also want to thank our channel member and moderator, Jeff Hansen, for being with us here in the live chat, helping to keep things kosher. You cannot make his job that much easier just by following the rules of the chat. We ask that you refrain from delving into overt politics and religion, that you hold off from typing messages in all caps, that you converse in English so that that Jeff and any of the other moderators that join in during the countdown can respond as appropriate. And Rick Donner's also here, both he and Jeff Hansen. Most importantly, though, that you treat each other with the respect and kindness that you yourself would like to be treated. Currently, T minus 23 minutes, 14 seconds and counting away from the planned liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket. If everything remained on track, SpaceX is currently in the process of loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's booster. And RP-1, a rocket-grade kerosene, the fuel of both the first and second stages, is also being loaded onto the launch vehicle. Also, SpaceX has loaded a cryogenic helium onto the pressure vessels for the Falcon 9's first and second stages. And that's used to pressurize the main propellant tanks during flight. Coming up next in just a couple of minutes is SpaceX's process for thermally conditioning the feed lines there at the pad ahead of loading liquid oxygen on board the rocket's second stage. Had we eyes on the launch vehicle at this point in the count, we would see the so-called big vent from the strong back, lasting about 4 minutes in total, setting up the LOX to flow at the 16-minute mark. Time now T minus 20 minutes, 36 seconds and counting. As I mentioned, the so-called big vent should be underway at this point in the count. Let's go ahead and look forward after the point of second stage LOX load in the countdown, which should be starting at the 16-minute mark. Some of the milestones that are still ahead of us in the fueling process tonight for the Falcon 9 rocket. At T minus 7 minutes is when the chill down of the 9 Merlin engines will get underway. That's when SpaceX flows a small amount of liquid oxygen through the plumbing and turbo pumps, helping to protect the engines from the risk of thermal shock and damage during startup. 6 minutes out, the first stage kerosene tank should be full. Then at T minus 4.5 minutes, we'll see the retraction of the strongback, otherwise known as the transporter erector. First, the clamp arms just beneath the payload fairings will open up, and then that strongback will recline about 13 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket, and it'll stay in that position until liftoff. 3 minutes before flight, the first stage liquid oxygen tank is full. Same as true on the second stage, about a minute afterwards, at which point the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant. In the final 60 seconds, as we hear the call that the Falcon 9 is in startup, control of the countdown is handed over from the ground sequencer to the Falcon 9's onboard flight computers, and the propellant tanks are brought up to flight pressure. SpaceX launch director will give their go for launch 45 seconds before liftoff. The engine ignition command is issued at T minus 3 seconds, and if all 9 Merlin engines are healthy and ignite as expected, the command will be given for the hold down clamps to release the Falcon 9 rocket for a T0 liftoff. Once again, currently targeting time you see here on your screen, 10:05 p.m. Pacific, 1:05 a.m. Eastern, 05:05 UTC for our friends around the world. Be remiss if we continued on with the broadcast without first acknowledging and thanking our wonderful channel member community who make these live launch opportunities possible. And a big thanks to everyone who was with us for our double launch coverage yesterday of the third flights of both the Vulcan rocket from United Launch Alliance and the Ariane 6 from Arianespace. So to our channel member community, thanks to folks like Cherry, the Rocket Girl, Macaw SJ, Mark Pachotnik. Let's see, we've got Glenn A tonight, Kenneth Urbanek, and many, many others as well. Channel membership comes with a number of perks, including discounts at our online shop, which is shop.spaceflightnow.com. Access to member-only videos here on YouTube, access to our members-only Discord server, and of course, the ability to watch all of our live launch liftoff moments from here in Florida in 4K. Want to welcome in some new channel members. Welcome into Del Mata, Florida Victory, Helen Bailey, Ron Green, Gary Prine, all joining with membership at the pad leader level. And Cherry marking 1 month with us now as a member at the pad leader level, saying much love to all. Last little bit of housekeeping as we hit the 17-minute mark, about a minute ahead of second stage LOX load beginning. If you have a comment or question or just like to offer some support tonight, you can follow the lead of folks like Cindy Kirkman by using the YouTube Super Chat feature. Not only will it be giving us some interesting things to talk about as we roll on through the countdown, but you'll also be supporting what we do here at Spaceflight Now. And that, my friends, is always greatly appreciated. Honda Red Rider 450 with a $2 Super Chat, who says, give it a shout out to some folks in Tehachapi. Apologies if I just completely butchered that. But shout to JB, Morgan, Jess, Wyatt, Lane, and Owen. Cindy Kirkman with a $10 Super Chat. Thank you, Cindy, who says, thank you all. Also, thank you to Michael Cisneros for the $10 Super Chat. Thank you, Michael, for your support tonight. And one more from Jeff Hansen, who says, go Vandy, go SpaceX, go Falcon 9, go Starlink, Godspeed 1093. 1093, of course, is the tail number for the first stage booster that is supporting today's Falcon 9 flight. going to be launching for just its fifth time, so certainly not one of the Falcon 9 frequent flyers that we've covered on other missions. There's going to be one of those flying fairly soon. But let's go ahead and take a beat to talk about the booster history for 1093 while we're on the subject. Its first flight happened to be the launch of a batch of Starlink satellites. As a matter of fact, that's all this booster has been slotted for since it began flying back on April 7th of this year. Starlink 11-11 was its first flight. That was followed by 15-5 on May 16th, 15-9 on June 17th, 15-2 on July 16th, and of course on deck right now is Starlink 17-4. Here's a look at the turnaround times for this particular booster. It's been getting progressively faster, getting back to the pad with today's flight, if all goes well, being its shortest turnaround time at just 28 days. As we're awaiting pad level views of the Falcon 9 rocket, let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about the weather currently out at Vandenberg Space Force Base in California. Looking at the satellite view, courtesy of the GOES West satellite, you can see there's looks like a little bit of cloud cover starting to form over the area around Vandenberg. Also know that there's wildfires in the area, which looks like you actually can see a little bit of that smoke not too far from Vandenberg. So certainly hoping that everyone in that neck of the woods is staying safe. Unclear if we'll see any effects of that nearby fire in the live cameras here, but presumably given that the launch is progressing, that everything around the pad is safe and that the fire is not a threat to personnel or the launch progressing tonight. Less than 13 minutes to go at this point in the countdown. Before we see the Falcon 9 rocket launch in just about 12 and a half minutes, assuming all continues to move along as expected, let's take a moment now to talk about the workhorse vehicle for SpaceX, the Falcon 9, which stands 70 meters or 229 feet in height and has a diameter of 3.66 meters or 12 feet. Tonight's Falcon 9 launch will be the 515th for the company to date and the 98th Falcon 9 rocket launch of the year. Majority of the Falcon 9 is, of course, coming from the booster itself. The first stage, which, as we just discussed, is tail number 1093 on this particular flight. At the base, the first stage are those 9 Merlin engines, which give the rocket its name, and they burn a rocket-grade kerosene, referred to as RP1, along with liquid oxygen as the oxidizer, together producing 1.7 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Around the engine compartment are black carbon fiber landing legs that are used to land this first stage on the drone ship. On the West Coast, of course, they use the drone ship called Of Course I Still Love You. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In that image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see the deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere, tail first like a big old dart heading towards the drone ship. The top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the vehicle's second stage. In that first stage, main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. Also, the second stage engine nozzle is housed safely inside the interstage adapter until the point of stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 rocket is powered by a single modified Merlin engine, referred to as a Merlin vacuum engine or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle, which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 220,500 pounds of thrust. It'll be fired twice on today's flight to place the 24 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. Like with the first stage, the MVAC engine also burns RP-1 and LOX. Following the deployment of the Starlink satellites on today's flight, there will be one final deorbit burn that will drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere, where it's designed to burn up and help eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this mission. We saw a similar deorbit burn. Well, didn't see it, but got confirmation of a similar deorbit burn following the deployment of the MEDOP SGA-1 satellite. That was the payload that was launched aboard the Ariane 6 rocket from French Guiana yesterday. At the top of the Falcon 9 stack are the payload fairings currently encapsulating the 24 Starlink satellites. The fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and stand 13.1 meters or 43 feet in height and are 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. The two fairing halves will be recovered a little bit further downrange from where the first stage lands on the drone ship. Following their path through atmospheric reentry, they make their final splashdown in the waters of the Pacific Ocean under the support of steerable parachutes. SpaceX is working to certify both its first and second, both its first stage booster and its payload fairings for up to 40 flights apiece. Of course, the one big part of the Falcon 9 that is not reused is the second stage. So there's a new one flown on every single Falcon 9 rocket launch. Part of the goal of the Starship program is to design a fully reusable rocket so that they can retrieve both the Super Heavy booster and the Starship upper stage, ideally with every mission. Just under 8 minutes to go now before the planned launch of this Falcon 9. In just about 40 seconds, SpaceX should start the engine chill sequence. Taking a look at our live chat here, I want to thank a few folks for their support this evening. Thanks to Jeff Quintrall for a $5 super chat, one of our channel members, who says, "We are fortunate to be at this point in time in space to witness this." Thank you, Jeff. Also, thanks to channel member Tobe Wobe for gifting 5 Spaceflight Now memberships. Really appreciate that, Tobe. And to our 5 newest gifted members, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. If you haven't already, be sure to thank Toby in the live chat. We hope you decide to stick around with channel membership. Julie Baldy joining us with membership at the pad leader level. And Astro Joe, one of our channel members and moderators, marking 37 months with us as a member at the pad leader level. Glad to see you didn't entirely forget the launch, Joe. We're glad to have you on board with about 6.5 minutes to spare. Should be getting pad level views of the Falcon 9 rocket here momentarily. Before we hit that point, one last little thing we want to note on, of course, is the flight path of the Falcon 9 rocket. So let's go ahead and talk a little trajectory before we get our eyes on the vehicle. Falcon 9 rocket going to be lifting off from Space Launch Complex 4 East there at Vandenberg Space Force Base. Once it departs, it'll fly in a southerly trajectory with the first stage booster targeting a touchdown on the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. If successful, this will be the 144th touchdown on that particular drone ship and the 487th booster landing to date. As you mentioned before, SpaceX will also endeavor to recover the payload fairings. Once down in the waters of the Pacific Ocean, they'll be brought aboard a SpaceX recovery vehicle and then brought back into port, where they will be turned around, refurbished, and prepared for future flights.
Falcon 9 tanks are pressurizing for Stromberg retract.
And as you just heard, SpaceX is preparing for the retraction of the Strongback. However, it is a very Vandenberg type night. You'll see what I mean here in just a second. Not a lot of great views of the Falcon 9 rocket there at the pad. 4.5 minutes to go before it
Stromberg retract has started.
takes off from this launch site, though. I can't say this will be the prettiest launch from Vandenberg that we've seen. But the most important thing for SpaceX, of course, is that they're able to get this rocket off the pad and continue moving on through its backlog of missions. As I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, it's been about 2 weeks since a launch from Vandenberg has taken place. SpaceX has not gone into any detail regarding the delays of getting back to launching its Falcon 9 rocket here. Of course, the other main launch provider working out of Vandenberg is Firefly Aerospace. And so far as we're aware, the mishap investigation from the sixth flight of an Alpha rocket is still ongoing. TBD when the return to flight of Firefly's Alpha rocket will take place. Likely to carry a payload for Lockheed Martin, since they do have a 25 mission contract with the company. As you just heard, Stage 1 LOX load has just wrapped up. Coming up, we'll hear a similar call regarding the Falcon 9's second stage. That should happen right about at the 2-minute mark. Worth noting that while views at liftoff are maybe not the most idyllic, once it does clear the pad and is above the fog, should have some decent tracking camera views from the onboard cameras at least. Hopefully folks a little further downrange can see it a bit better than right up close.
Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that call, the Falcon 9 rocket is fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant.
Ground gas closeouts.
Call for gas closeouts there. You can just kind of barely make out a little bit of disturbance in the grander fog by the rocket-generated fog, if you will. That's SpaceX releasing the remaining LOX from the feed lines. You can see a little bit of it wisping away near the top of the screen.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Less than a minute to go. We're now just awaiting the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch call, if they are ready.
LD is go for launch.
Good news. 40 seconds to go. We're going to go ahead and step back on our commentary and listen along with you to the final seconds of liftoff, and we'll be back with you on the other side.
T minus 3 seconds. T minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. And liftoff of Falcon 9. Go SpaceX, go Starlink.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Falcon 9 power and telemetry are nominal. Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Falcon 9 now traveling faster than the speed of sound as it approaches max Q.
Max Q.
This is the point of greatest aerodynamic pressure on the vehicle. Now throttling its engines back up. It's preparing to start thermal conditioning on the Merlin vacuum engine. Should hear a call for MVAC chill or something along those
Engine
lines.
chill.
There you go. With preparation for the first burn of the upper stage, we're coming up on a few events now in fairly rapid succession. We'll see first stage main engine cutoff, or MECO, at about T plus 2 minutes and 26 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation and then the ignition of that Merlin vacuum engine. The payload fairings should jettison just around the 3-minute mark in flight.
Main engine cutoff.
Stage separation confirmed.
MVAC ignition.
All good callouts, good onboard visuals. You could see the hypersonic grid fins now deploying on the booster stage. Coming up on fairing jettison next.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And a good view, lights on from those Starlink satellites. 24 of those Starlink V2 minis are on board this particular Falcon 9 flight. Coming up next will be the entry burn, which will call upon 3 out of the 9 engines on the Falcon 9 first stage booster, and that'll help to dramatically slow the vehicle
Those
down.
vehicles are on a nominal trajectory.
Good call on a good trajectory. That entry burn will last about 23 seconds in total. Falcon booster is slowing down, as you can see with the telemetry data in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Looks like it has reached its apogee at about 117 kilometers in altitude and will now start to make its descent towards the drone ship called, of course, I Still Love You. Looking for a touchdown on that drone ship just a little before 8.5 minutes into this flight. A little more than 5 minutes to flight now. We've got about a minute left before the
Both
start of
vehicles continue to follow a nominal trajectory.
the entry burn. Good call on trajectory there.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Good calls there. The FTS is the flight termination system, no longer needed at this stage in the flight.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
With the conclusion of that entry burn, we now look ahead to the start of the landing burn, which will begin just a little before the 8-minute mark in this mission.
Stage 1 transonic.
The first stage now traveling below the speed of sound. We're less than 20 seconds away from the start of the landing
Stage 2
burn.
FTS is saved.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
In confirmation of B-1093 making that good touchdown, wrapping up its 5th trip to space and back.
Nominal park orbit insertion.
And with that engine shutting down, we got the good call for a nominal parking orbit. At this point, the upper stage will continue to coast until about T plus 54 minutes and 15 seconds after liftoff. There will be a brief 1 second burn on the upper stage engine. That'll help to circularize its orbit, setting up for the Starlink satellites to be deployed at T plus 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 7 seconds post liftoff. As a reminder, now's a great time to hit that subscribe button and make sure you've got your notifications turned on. For those who are early birds or just staying up late with us tonight, we do have one more launch for you set up with the sunrise flight of the Starlink 10-20 mission from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. So we certainly hope that you are able to join us for that. We'll have our live coverage beginning about an hour before liftoff for that mission. I want to thank a couple of folks in the live chat before we go ahead and turn to our mission stats as they currently stand. Thanks to Haley Higgins, hashtag Irish Haley, for a $2 super chat. Thanks to Christopher Cooper for a $2 super chat as well. Thank you, Christopher. Julie Judd with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Julie. Cynthia Graves with a $10 super chat saying hi. Hello, Cynthia. Also want to thank Stephen Frazier for gifting 6 Spaceflight Out memberships. Jason Collins for gifting 5. So to our newest channel members that were gifted membership, welcome aboard. We're glad to have you with us. Also welcome into Rocket Profit, joining us with membership at the pad leader level, along with Diana Nickel and Toby Wilbe upgrading their membership to the spacecraft commander level. Really appreciate that, Toby. And we sincerely thank all of those who are able to support us at the higher membership levels and allow us to keep our entry-level membership where it is to bring that coverage to more people. And thanks to one of our channel members, Deb, for a $5 super chat. Thank you, Deb. Turning now to our mission stats as they currently stand, with a good liftoff and landing of this first stage booster that marks the end of flight number 5 for B1093. This was SpaceX's 515th Falcon 9 launch to date, the 98th launch of 2025. This was the company's 153rd orbital flight within the last 365 days, the 140th orbital launch from Slick 4 East for SpaceX, and the 208th overall orbital launch from this pad as well. Here's a look at the bar chart showing the Falcon launches year to year. Moving on to some recovery stats, this was the 144th landing on the drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You. That marked the 395th SpaceX drone ship landing and the 487th Falcon booster landing to date. Finally, with some industry stats, this was the 35th orbital launch from California, the 98th from U.S. soil, the 115th from a U.S. rocket company. Actually, slight typo that this was the 104th orbital launch from U.S. soil. Not all of them have been SpaceX. This was also the 178th orbital launch from around the globe. There have been 4 orbital mishaps so far this year. Here's where our pie chart now currently stands. And with that, we're going to go ahead and begin to wind down our coverage again. One more reminder, we hope that you're able to join us for our live coverage of the Starlink 10-20 mission from here in Florida tomorrow. Early morning launch, looking for a flight at 6:47 a.m. Eastern, 10:47 UTC. Also, for those of you who are following the expansion of SpaceX's presence in the Golden State, there's going to be a meeting of the California Coastal Commission. I know we don't often talk about state politics as part of our coverage, but pertinent and relevant to SpaceX launch operations there. One of the agenda items that the commission is going to be discussing is the consistency determination that is being requested by the U.S. Space Force that would allow SpaceX to do a couple of things. Number one, increase the number of Falcon 9 launches from Vandenberg from 50 up to 95 per year. Number two, allow for the launches of Falcon Heavy rockets. That would be for up to 5 times per year. And also to modify Space Launch Complex 6, which would be able to accommodate both Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy launches, in addition to constructing 2 new landing zones for RTLS flights from that pad. That meeting is set to start at 9:30 a.m., or excuse me, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern. And I believe folks can attend that meeting virtually as well as in person. So if you have interest in keeping tabs on that discussion for consideration for those things that the Space Force is asking on behalf of SpaceX, that is when that will happen tomorrow morning. I want to thank our Spaceflight Now editor, Stephen Young, who's been running the technical operations of the broadcast, and we'll be back again in just a few hours for the forthcoming launch from here in Florida. I want to thank our wonderful moderators in the live chat who have been helping us out today. Thanks to Wazzy Space Girl is also able to join us. That's fabulous. Jeff Hansen, Rick Donner, and Astro Joe as well. Appreciate all of you for helping us out in the live chat. Most importantly, though, want to thank you for wherever you've been watching from today. We look forward to welcoming you back in when next we have an orbital launch to discuss. For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, be good to yourselves, be good to others, and we will see you next time, folks. And until then, bye-bye.